a very special episode of Help Wanted. On Help Wanted, I bring on guests and they talk about how their personal life impacts their professional life and how that all ultimately benefits the recruiting, talent acquisition, and employer branding industry as a whole. Because your personal life does impact your professional life. It just does. And that can be a huge benefit. William is a perfect example of that. Their brave yet vulnerable comments in meetings make everything better by enlightening us with interesting perspectives that a lot of the company may not have thought about before. So, today we're going to be talking about queer visibility in the workplace and analogies. Why? Because queer visibility is important. Queer visibility has analogies to visibility of any marginalized groups, and analogies can provide key perspective shifts that allow everyone everywhere to understand meaning. I guarantee you that many of you are asking yourself, do I even have anything to be visible about? And I want you to think about it in a different way. So I'm going to introduce you all to William Leach right now. William, thank you so much for joining the show, joining Help Wanted. Could you please tell everybody where you're watching from and your role here at Career Arc?
I am tuning in from, it was gloomy, but it's about to be sunny Los Angeles, so happy to be here. And I'm on the client success team. I work as the social media strategist, so I like talking about how to make the most of what you post and getting the best out of everything you're doing on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, even Instagram.
Yeah, why not? So the other thing that I want you to do is, can you introduce us to kind of why, generally, why we decided to have this session today and why we're talking about what we're talking about from a really general perspective?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like in a general sense, visibility benefits everybody. It creates a better culture within your work community, and it also provides a space for you to get the best talent out there from all sorts of groups. And so I just kind of want to unpack the heaviness that comes with visibility. What does that mean? What does it look like? What does visibility even mean, and how do we achieve that? And so that's what I'm here for, to improve the process a little bit. Let's dumb it down a bit. Let's make it fun.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we're going to start at a fairly entry-level point, but we're going to talk about some key concepts to kind of elevate your perspectives as well. So oftentimes, I get the impression that people in recruiting, and quite frankly, everywhere, feel uncomfortable talking about queer issues or issues around marginalized communities for fear of saying something wrong, which to an extent, I also understand, but it inhibits them from being able to learn. And I think learning is just so crucial. If we stop children from learning when they got something wrong, what kind of society would we live in? So it's about like learning through failures and mistakes. And quite frankly, either of us may make some mistakes in the way that we address some of these things as we talk through it now, or say things in a way that is a little bit different than how other people may view things, and that's okay. Yeah. And we'd love to hear your perspectives in the comments as well. So, William, what is it, and what can it really mean for a company or a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the basic level of the way we think about it, it often goes straight to having representation of marginalized groups, and that's definitely important. You definitely want to highlight and support and celebrate people who belong to marginalized identities within your workspace, right? That way you're making space for that kind of talent to come in and really succeed. But at the most basic level, right, visibility is just about celebrating the things that we all bring to the table, right? We all have different complex aspects of ourselves that make up our identities. And when we come to work, even though some of us are working at home, right, we're not hanging up a jacket of our identity, right? Those things really inform the way we work, the way we engage, the type of work we like to do. And so visibility is really, at the most basic level, to make it super simple, is creating a space that allows those different aspects of each individual to really shine through and complement the work they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing is, it feels ominous at times, and we as queer people sometimes have to be teachers through our own traumatic experiences. Yeah, so totally. Can you talk about I like this session and this format for talking about issues like this, because it's kind of like, okay, I can talk about all this at once, send it to a whole world of people, and then we can take a breather from it, because it can be stressful. But tell me about the ominous nature behind kind of visibility.
I think it's ominous because I think we really overthink what visibility means and how you can achieve visibility. And I think like what we're doing right now is a really cool example of how visibility can be present in the workspace and it not feel like some tumultuous conversation, right? I think Help Wanted is really cool because you were literally inviting people who work in the recruitment and the talent space to talk about and celebrate themselves. And yes, I'm patting you on the back. Good job, Bryant, for supporting visibility. But I do think stuff like this is a really good opportunity, or even when you're spotlighting employees and you're not just focusing on like their work and their productivity, but the things that make them a whole person. I mean, those are really ample opportunities for visibility. And the thing is, your potential candidates and even your customers, they really value that authentic kind of sense of like who is behind the camera and behind the product. Like not only on social, but from a consumer perspective, they eat that stuff up. So really it's like, it's also a moneymaker. Not that everything has to be a moneymaker. You can do this just because it's right and it feels good, but it ultimately has real like applicable benefits.
Absolutely. You know, there's a organization called Allyship, and they did a phenomenal webinar, I believe in the spring of this past year, that talked about from a financial perspective, being discriminatory against even unconscious bias, which is a huge thing in the space as well, is a huge financial detriment to literally any company because it's just a whole percentage of the population that you're like, oh, not going to make money from them, and passing that out. And it's not like, while you say too, it's not about making money. It is about inclusion and supporting people and all those sorts of things. Sometimes you have to talk to things in perspectives that people can understand and reverse engineer an approach as well. But it can be really scary to feel like someone's not going to like what you have to say in those scenarios. So you have created this really great strategy to build a bridge, or like an arc, as we should say here, in 5 minutes. That allows for really authentic communication. So check this out, William. How do you build a bridge to connect with new people in 5 minutes?
Okay, I'm going to blow everybody's mind. Are you ready for this? My method of building a bridge in 5 minutes is dedicating 5 minutes of your call. I mean, maybe that's a lot, right? 2 to 5 minutes even. These bridges can be much shorter and much more quickly built. To not act like every call and every meeting has to be just that, right? I think a lot of my success, especially working in client success and working directly with clients, is that we have a 30-minute window, and I like to dedicate just a few minutes to the, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? How was that event you told me about? How was that special thing that you told me was going on in your life? How are the kids, right? Oh, you're brand new to me. Hey, my name's William. I use they, them pronouns. What is your name? Would you like to share your pronouns with me? I mean, just immediately taking a few minutes to build a space of mutual respect and personhood, right? And so we often get so caught up in like work is work and we have to get to the nitty gritty. And that's absolutely true. But I do my best work when I feel really comfortable in an environment. And if I could dive right in and be on and talk about numbers and math and I don't feel, I don't know, present, that really gets in the way of the success of how I work. And so, I mean, take the 5 minutes. How are you? It's as easy as that. It really is.
It's a smart investment because we are remembering that there are people at the center of the work that we're doing. And building that bridge to understand who this person is from a personal level will help you understand who they are from a professional level, and just like Help Wanted, how that can ultimately benefit your company. So you wanted to do this because you are, it helps you kind of like check the temperature, like gauge the temperature of a relationship with a person, like where they're coming from, maybe that day or maybe as an entire entity. So I think it's really, really special and a smart strategy. The other thing is, y'all already know this from the way that William has presented himself. William is a very funny person. And while some view humor in a work setting as a mask for insecurities, which as queer people, absolutely, and as non-queer people, absolutely. But in this type of work, William has a really incredibly smart and thoughtful approach to the value of a laugh. So can you talk to me a little bit about that as well, William?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's absolute truth to the fact that I think everybody masks insecurity to some effect with a little bit of comedy. But if that's a universal truth, if that's something that we all experience, then you can actually weaponize that methodology to create a like low stakes situation out of anything. And so I've really adopted a comedic style in my professional life of Working with clients, sometimes you're saying things that maybe challenges them, or maybe they just don't agree with it, and you have to work around two different perspectives. So you come in with a joke, you get to the business, and you end with a joke. You air a little hair flip moment, a little honk honk, right? That way we kind of level set. We get through the serious, we set up, we get through the serious, and then we all leave mutual, feeling good, right? We don't have to leave on like high stakes, high emotions all the time. And if I can do that in any conversation, whether it's work or even if it's just like direct conversation, sometimes being a queer person, my perspectives or my point of view or even my existence can challenge people. And so sometimes, I'm trying to help people learn on their way too, right? Not everybody has the energy or the time. Sometimes I do. And when I do, I'm going to throw in a little humor for it, right? Because I want us all to walk away feeling better about the conversation we had.
Yeah. And, it's so smart what you do in terms of this as well, because you present it in a smart way. You present it in what's called the sandwich method. So can you tell me about your particular sandwich method?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, the classic, you set up with a compliment, you give the feedback, and you end with a compliment. Same kind of idea. Start with something positive and not super heavy and work related, whether that's your like 5-minute bridge intro, getting nice and comfortable, get to the nitty gritty of work, end with something that's a little fun, a little low stakes, ends with a smile. If I don't have like a joke or something witty to say, clients laugh at this all the time. I'll say, do you have any questions, comments, ambiguities, good jokes you heard recently, funny things to say? And they all laugh. I don't even have to say a joke, and they don't even have to have a joke. But just the idea that this space can be used for more than just talking about numbers and work really benefits everybody. Yeah. And I have been told a time or two, humble brag, that clients look forward to these calls because it's not such an intense space.
Everybody looks forward to a call with William. For the viewers, literally everybody. So, the other thing is that you mentioned about the concept of safe spaces, and Katrina Kibben is fantastic. Kat Kibben, she's at Katrina Kibben on Twitter, has a fantastic feed. So if you want to follow somebody who can help you with queer issues and understand queer things, especially in the recruiting industry, she said, if you want to create an environment where queer and trans people feel safe, their stories have to be equally valid to you. So as much as William, you create a safe environment for your clients and the people that you're around to say, hey, you might not be accustomed to someone like me having a conversation with you in a work setting, but you're gonna love it. Everything's gonna be just fine. We also would really appreciate that from you as well. Knowing that we're in a safe space, knowing that like you can sit in discomfort and it'd be great. Because there's a lot that goes into creating a safe space from queer people. And one of the analogies that I like to talk about is just naming conventions. So, William, can you use they them pronouns?
I sure do.
Or can you share your perspective on the pronouns?
Yeah. So I find the conversation around pronouns to be heavily politicized in today's conversation, right? I feel like the number one thing we see are trans or non-binary people only in the heat of the moment, and when they've probably been misgendered or treated with a very little respect for a prolonged period of time. So it's very easy to see these pieces of these social indicators like a pronoun where you're thinking to yourself, is it that big of a deal? Does it matter that much? Like it was an accident, But I want to put everybody into like, let's take away the pronoun conversation. At the end of the day, we all have pronouns, so there's no getting rid of that. But let's focus on a different social indicator. Let's talk about a name, right? Think about if you have something you go by and the entire day, maybe for weeks, maybe even for months, people have just been mispronouncing your name and not taking the time to learn it. Or people have, your name sounds comparable to something or similar to somebody else's name, right? And then you're completely feeling disrespected because people aren't taking the time to respect you and your personhood for that social indicator, which is your name, right? And so, my wonderful colleague, Marissa, is keeping the chat very lively. And I know Marissa has let me share this story, and that Marissa has a sister named Melissa. And Marissa has shared a few times that it can be very frustrating when you're at an event with people and it's, hey, Melissa, how are you? Melissa, how is this thing? Well, I can't answer that because I'm Marissa. And so thinking about how when you're being inundated with that, with something as, important to you as a name, right? You can really step back and say, oh, I, even as a non-queer person, have social indicators that do mean a lot to me. And if they were not being respected, or if they were not being, or if people weren't taking the time to like really learn that side of me, whether it's pronunciation or really just what my name is in general, I would be upset. And after a long period of time, I might snap a little bit because sometimes it gets exhausting to have to remind people all the time.
Yeah, it's very distracting. So one of the things, the other analogy that we talked about, and Marissa is fantastic for that analogy because it's so fitting. So my academic background is all in psychology, and I studied sports psychology and mental toughness. And one of the things that we discuss is the concept of distractions. So if you're going to play a game, you really need to be focused on the game at hand. But if you're in a new environment, there's different sounds, there's different echoes, there's like it smells different, it like the air is different in these different places. And all of those, however minor they may seem, are actually distractions from what that you have for your task at hand. And the more you can phase out those distractions from your life and focus on the task at hand, the better you're able to do. So by being attentive to people's pronouns and people's names and the way people ought to be treated, you're really helping them do better work too. So the other thing that I love about the sports connection too, which is so funny to be talking about sports and a queer focus.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you keep doing that. You're doing great. Keep going.
The thing that's so ridiculous is that if you follow the hashtag recruiters on Instagram, for example, you are not going to find that many recruiters from a business perspective or talent acquisition experts. You're going to find recruiters for sports teams. And recruiters from businesses should be thought of in a very similar way, because you're not just recruiting somebody to fill a role. You're not just this void of a person to fill this void of a role. You're recruiting an actual person for an actual role. So if a team wins the Super Bowl, that's great. But guess who's celebrating extra hard? The recruiter who placed the quarterback with that team to be like, this is your guy. This is your person. That should be celebrated. Recruiters deserve to be celebrated. You get to create a world of businesses that have diversity, equity, inclusion, and more, and accessibility, and make people feel seen, helped, and wanted, and supported. And that's just so special. So I hope that we have been able to help you think about things from a new perspective today. William, I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story and your perspective, because you have a fantastic way of putting complex concepts and verbalizing them in a very understandable way. And I want to thank you for that, because it's been really fun developing the outline for this with you and Marissa. And we're just so fortunate to have you here at Career Arc. Is there any note that you have to end on, or anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just quickly, I'll say that the cheapest resource that any business can have is respect. It's like super affordable. And as a matter of fact, it's not in short supply. So it's something that you can definitely have a lot of. And you don't have to overthink visibility. You can start with just showing awareness and respect for different communities that you're hoping to get more talent from. So if you're looking around and finding ways to get creative and to spread awareness and to be more visible, not just for the people you have, but people you want to have, you can do it. Oh, is that Sean? Hi, Sean. Sorry, shout out to Sean. That's my friend Sean.
I love it. Thanks for being here, Sean. So, and William, thank you again. You recruiters, you wear a lot of hats. We're hoping that this talk can make it easier for you to not have to wear an entirely new hat. Your heads are getting covered by them already. But people expect a lot from recruiters and from experts in the space as well. So we're just hoping this is an opportunity for us to connect the dots and build a bridge, so to speak, build an arc, so to speak, like William is so talented at. And we'd love to hear your feedback on this or any other issues you'd like to hear about in the future of Help Wanted. But until then, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next week with an all-new episode. Yes. William and Marissa, thank you again, too. See you later.
Bye, everybody. Have a slayful Monday.